Hello, this is John Sarver, and welcome to the Michigan Solar Story Series, sponsored by the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association and the Michigan Solar Users Network. And tonight we have Bob Synk from Grand Rapids talking about his two solar systems, his solar hot water system and his solar electric system. And Bob will tell you he had some challenging issues because of shading, but he's made the thing work really well. And please kind of mute yourself until we get to the question and answer period, because after Bob does his presentation, we'll go to a full screen. And if you have questions, you'll be able to just unmute yourself and then ask your question. And so, hey, Bob, why don't you go ahead and tell us your solar story?
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in tonight. You can see the picture. I'm standing in front of our house where we have been since 2007. And those solar panels we put in 2013. At that time, I was mostly concerned about cutting back on my natural gas. So we had a gas water heater. And so I went with the solar water heating. Those guys work great. I've got way more heat all summer long than I can possibly use. In the winter, there's not quite enough heat. So I still have a conventional water heater. But this kind of technology, it's been around for a long time. It's very reliable. This is the kind of solar that was put on the White House in the 70s. By Jimmy Carter. But lately it's been eclipsed by the PV panels that make electricity. And in 2018, I had some of those put on my garage. And I hit enter and it was supposed to go to the next slide and it didn't. Okay, we should have practiced going to the next slide. Let's see here. Oh, there it goes. Just now. Okay, so this is a view from the top of my garage. I've got 12 PV panels. PV stands for photovoltaic. So it transfers or converts the sunlight into direct current electricity. And here's another view of my garage. And you can just barely see the panels on the west side of the garage. On the east side, you can see there's a very large tree, so it's totally shaded over there. So only one half of the garage roof could get any sun. And in the garage, we have 2 electric cars. And those 2 electric cars use as much electricity as my house. At least they were before the COVID-19 started. Now I'm not driving very much. I get to work from home and not going on very many trips at all. This is the view looking straight west from the garage. And you can kind of tell the whole afternoon is full sun. So that's really great. But when we get towards sunset, these big trees are going to shade my panels. But even though it's not perfect, it still produces a lot of electricity. Did I mention it's so about 1/3 of all the electricity I use, I get from the solar panels. So even if you don't have a perfect situation, you know, the best south-facing roof and totally clear with no shade, you can probably do a lot with what you have. So I just wanted to make the most of what I had, you know, even if it might not be as good as somebody else's. So inside the garage, there's this inverter unit. The panels produce direct current, but your house uses alternating current. And so this unit converts it to alternating and syncs it up with the waves on the grid. And on the other side of the garage, there's the emergency shutoff. I came out this spring and there was a robin with a nest on here. And I thought, oh, that's not going to be safe. So I had to evict them. But if there's a storm and lines are down, consumers can come out here. They'll just pull down on that lever, and then then that will cut off my system, so they can work on the lines in safety and they won't get poked by any of my electricity. So my next, later on this summer, this is my house right next to the garage. And this also is a west facing, and on the other side, east facing roof. This roof gets more sun than the garage. And we're gonna get 14 panels up here, 7 on each side. So we waited until after we got new shingles. You definitely want to make sure your roof is in good shape before you put up your solar panels. So wait until you re-roof or get repairs done, because those panels are going to last a long time. You don't want to have to take them all off and work on the roof and then put them back. Okay, let's talk money. I bought my system from Chuck Almond of Almond Design, and he charged $9,000. I got the 30% federal tax credit, so I only really paid $6,300. And I did some calculations after the first year and found that $6,300 will be paid back in 15 years. A lot of people want to know about that payback time, or when do you break even? I'm saving money every year on my electric bill. When does that annual saving add up to what I spent? So for me, it's 15. Now, if you get a south-facing roof, more than likely, you're going to pay back in less than 10 years. And one thing I could point out that there's an annual loss estimate of 0.7%. So over time, the solar panels degrade. After 15 years, they're at 90% capacity. So, but at that point, they're basically paid for. I'll get another 15 years of free electricity. And after that 30 years, they'll probably be at about 80% capacity. And either I or whoever owns the house at that point can decide, do they want to keep them, or do they want to trade them in for new panels? And who knows, 30 years from now, how great the solar panels are going to be. Probably much more efficient than they are today. So here's my meter. I found out just late last year about consumers' energy time of day rate. So I pay a little bit more for my electricity during the day and a little bit less at night. The good news is they're paying me a little bit more during the day for the electricity that I send to them. Because if I am not using as much electricity as the solar panels are producing, the rest of it goes out on the grid, and then I get a credit for that. So with the time of day rate, I might have a payback in less than the 15 years I calculate. So the funny thing is that Consumers Energy needs me to go out to my meter once a month and write down the numbers and then email them the numbers. And then a couple days later, they email me this spreadsheet. So it has the numbers that I gave them and some calculations and what's going to be on my bill. So Finding an installer. If you are a do-it-yourselfer, DIY projects around the house, if you like working with electricity, solar panels are something that you can do yourself. Maybe you would need a electrician to do the breaker box, or at least inspect your work. In any event, like I live in the city of Grand Rapids, the city inspector has to come and check everything out. But this event is sponsored by the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, and on their website, they have a list of all their members. So you can check that out, look at those people's websites, call them up, talk to them, pick 2 or 3 to come to your house and look it over and give you a proposal. Any big project on your house, it's a good idea to get more than one quote. Of course, there's lots of other solar installers who are not members of the association. So, any Google search will show you a lot of people that are doing this kind of work. Now, that federal tax credit, it's very easy when you're doing your taxes. I do my taxes over the internet with a program called Tax Act. And you go through and they ask you questions, you answer the questions. And it asked me, do you have an energy credit? And I just say yes, and it asks me the questions, and then it fills out the details. So don't be intimidated by making the idea that it'll make your taxes more complicated. It's not a problem. But the problem that there is that this tax credit is going away. This year, it's already less, only 26%. Next year, it's down to 22%, and no more after that. So act fast. Now, something else I learned this year. The federal tax credit is available to houses of worship and other nonprofits. It's a little more complicated. You have to get together a group of investors. It can be members of the congregation, as well as other people like me who just want to promote renewable energy. And these people will form a limited liability corporation, an LLC, and they will make a power purchase agreement, PPA, a contract with the church. And that will specify how many dollars per kilowatt hour or cents per kilowatt hour they're going to pay. And it's going to be less than what they're paying their utility. So the church is going to start saving money right away. And the church is not liable for maintaining the panels. That's the chore of the LLC. Of course, there's hardly any maintenance to be done. But the people who are investing, they're doing it because it's a good cause. So they're not doing it to get rich. So they may make 1% or 2%, but they will eventually get their investment back. They will get immediately, they will take the federal tax credit. And so they'll get that 26% or 22% back right away. And then at some point in the future, if the nonprofit wants to purchase those panels and own them, they can do that. So I added some more ideas of what you can do to be friendly to the earth besides installing solar at your home. And here's a shot of our rain garden. The rain coming off the roof. If it just goes down the driveway and into the street, it's going to pick up pollutants, and then those pollutants are going to find their way into our rivers and streams. So it's better if the rain can just soak into the soil. So our gutters deposit it into this garden, and So a lot of it soaks into the soil rather than running off. You are advised that it should be 10 feet from your house. You don't want to get water in your basement. This one is closer to my house actually, but it's hemmed in by the concrete walkway. So we compromised a little bit with that. Rain barrels. Rain barrels have the same benefits as the rain garden, except you get to use that water. You get to decide when you want to use it. Oh, and rain barrels, you can get them various places. If you already have access to a 55-gallon drum, you can buy a kit to transform it into a rain barrel. A kit, you can get that over the internet. WMIAC, the West Michigan, West Michigan, I forget what it stands for. Anyway, that's a group in Grand Rapids that is West Michigan Environmental Action Council. They do workshops on rain barrels. So we picked up a couple rain barrels after their workshop for very cheap. Native plants. So the best plants that are evolved for your yard are the ones that are native to Michigan. I like to have things buzzing around my yard. Birds, butterflies, hummingbirds, bees. And native plants will bring more of those around and help those to flourish. So there must be lots of places you can get native plants. The one I know about is the Kent Conservation District. From their website, you can read all about the plants and see pictures. They bloom at different times. They attract different insects. So you can plan your garden so that something is blooming all summer long. And they have a sale in the spring and in the fall. Composting. So we picked up these nice tumblers on the internet. And you know, you fill up one of them with your kitchen waste and you tumble it and mix it around every so often. Do not put meat in your compost. That will attract pests, but all of your plant-based kitchen waste. And then in this unit, when one tumbler is full, then I start filling up the other one. Then when they're both full, go back to the first one, empty it out, spread the compost that's nicely decayed then wherever I want to spread it. Of course, you don't have to go with something like this. For many years, I just had a dirt pile and I buried my compost in it, my yard waste or kitchen waste, and I stirred it up with a shovel. So that works too. Okay, this National Solar Tour. I did this last year. I had maybe 12 people come to my house and I showed them my solar, and it was a lot of fun. I met some nice people and we had great conversations. So this year, because of COVID, it's just going to be online. So if you go to this website, National Solar Tour, the week of September 28th, then every day there'll be live things going on, and many people will have their pictures or videos of their solar homes. So there will be a lot to see on this website. Okay, so that's everything that I had in my PowerPoint. So now we can have questions and answers.
Yeah, Bob, can you stop the screen sharing so we can see everybody?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, hey, my question for you, Bob, is if you, looking back on your experiences with both the solar hot water and the solar electric systems, Is there anything you would do differently looking back on it?
Hmm. Well, I had an ulterior motive to go with the hot water. And I had grandiose visions of using extra hot water to do space heating in my house. But in order to do that, you either need about 10 times the panels that I have, or you need a way to store heat for 6 months. And both of those are quite challenging. So I still have a dream of doing some experimentation with heat storage. But if I was just starting out today, I would probably start out with the PV panels and just go with the electricity generation. It's a lot simpler to install, and it's a simple system. A hot water system, it involves plumbing. And of course, plumbing, somebody once said, all plumbing has one thing in common. Eventually it will leak. So, that's a small downside. I have had no leaks at all. And I don't expect to for many, many years. But it is a more complicated thing.
Yeah, if anybody has a question, just unmute yourself and ask Bob.
How efficient are your current PV cells?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you, Jim.
I was wondering, how efficient are your PV cells on your garage?
I have no idea. That's like something a solar installer or salesperson could tell you. Yeah, there's numbers that they all have. There's so much energy in the sunlight, and so much of it is turned into electricity. And I think typically it's a very low number, like something like 10%. 15?
Yeah, it's the number I typically hear is 15%, but it is going up. And there are. I hear about research being done where panels are 20% or even more. So they are getting better. Sometimes people ask whether there are premium panels, and actually there are some that actually produce more power than others. Most panels produce similar amounts of power, but the only issue with the premium panels is typically the whole issue that, maybe if you have enough space, you just buy an extra, less efficient panel, and actually the economics could work out better. So that's why, like Bob suggested, getting 3 proposals is a good idea, because you get sometimes different types of panels, different savings estimates, and you can ask lots of good questions.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Hey, Bob, how many panels do you have on your roof?
On the garage, I have 12.
How much space does that take up? Like foot distance?
Well, the garage is about 20 foot square.
Okay, all right.
So about 20 foot by 10 foot.
Okay.
A little less than that, because
Right.
it doesn't go right to the edge.
Bob, who manufactured your panels?
Mine were manufactured by Solar World. Now, they were manufactured in the United States, but when I Googled them, they were no longer around on the internet. So I suspect they may have gone out of business.
Bob, when you talk about heating, space heating, I found that passive solar is probably the simplest, easiest way to do it. Just insulate the hell out of your house, put in good windows. I've got triple panes, and have some thermal mass in the right places, and voila. I had it in New Hampshire, which is colder than Ann Arbor, And I find the e-coatings are really helpful too.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The passive solar. Yeah, if you're, especially if you're designing a house, building new, yeah, you can get into the net zero energy realm, and use all kinds of tricks to make the house absorb heat when you want it, and discard heat when you don't want it.
One of the tricks is to pick the right house that's sited properly.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you're buying, yeah, looking to that when you're shopping for a house, absolutely.
Good point.
Yeah, I had a friend, this is years ago, who was very handy, and so he got a book and decided he would make his home passive solar, and he knocked out the back wall and the back roof, and actually he built a passive solar home in East Lansing. Now it took him a while. Like I said, he's very talented. His wife divorced him, but but it can be done even with an existing house. I don't recommend it though. Like we've been talking, if you're going to build a new home, or if you have a great location for passive solar, it's really a great approach to take advantage of solar energy. I don't hear about many people doing it. You usually have to find a good architect who has some experience.
Mm.
Other questions for Bob? Anybody unmute yourself? And
You said that the current federal tax credit is going to sunset after next year. Do you know if there's any proposals now for future Congress? Any plans to do that?
Oh yeah, of course. Groups like the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association lobby, at least the Michigan legislature, for energy friendly and environmentally friendly legislation. And of course, there are national groups lobbying Congress. They want to get that extended. And I'm sure there are many congressmen who would like to see that extended. I don't know if there are actually any bills with bill numbers currently, but I'm sure that environmental groups will keep lobbying Congress about that. And so I suppose there's hope that it could be extended. But as it is now, it's going to be done after 2011.
the other thing to consider too, there's the federal tax credit, but also probably a lot of you are Consumers Energy customers, and Consumers Energy is in the process of getting a distributed generation tariff approved by the State Public Service Commission, which will replace net metering. And the DG tariff won't be as favorable as the net metering basically credit that you get for excess power. And so probably sometime toward the end of this year, they'll finally make a decision at the state level about this new DG tariff, which will replace net metering. So anybody who does solar like this summer or even early fall, in addition to the 26%, they'll be able to go into the traditional net metering where you get a bill credit at the retail rate. This again is Consumers Energy customers, because DTE already has an unfavorable DG tariff, but if you're with Consumers Energy, you still have an opportunity to get under the window, and you install a system, you're in true net metering for 10 years, you're grandfathered for 10 years, and so that's a consideration too for folks who are looking into solar, why you would want to do it this year, especially if you're a Consumers Energy customer.
That's right. For all the electricity that I send out to the grid, I get paid by consumers or for the same rate that I pay them, or it's just a credit. But in the future, you may get paid only I don't know, it might be half or 2/3, 1/3, who knows? You won't, but it won't be as much. And it's not, in my view, Consumers Energy should pay me just as much as I'm paying them. After all, that electricity goes on the grid and my neighbors are using it, and Consumers is charging them full price for that. And it's also helping consumers to not have to put power plants online in the hot summer days when they have to supply the peak demand. So the more solar there is, the more the demand evens out in the hot summer days. So it really helps the utility quite a lot.
And GLREA is intervening in the Consumers Energy rate case where these issues are being discussed, and our witnesses are making basically the case that Bob just said, that there's a good reason why excess power put on the grid should be valued at the retail rate at least. And so we're trying to make that case in front of the Public Service Commission. So hopefully, this new DG tariff won't be as bad as DTE, because the DTE tariff that was approved is half, basically approximately half the retail rate. I should mention too, Bob had mentioned about the ACES Solar Home Tour. We're also going to have a Michigan-specific tour that is going to be live and virtual on Saturday, October 3rd from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And a number of solar owners will be having 15-minute segments where they talk about their solar systems and answer questions. So there'll be further specifics about that at the GLREA website, which is glrea.org, glrea.org. So that's going to be coming up, Saturday, October 3rd. That will be live. And the ACES website, I'm not sure when that'll go live, but there'll be like Bob indicated, kind of solar stories from all over the country that you might find interesting. Other questions for Bob?
Bob, what motivated you to pursue solar in the first place?
For me, it's always, well, two things. I don't like that I have to pollute the world in order to live. I would like to be able to live without making any pollution. And with air pollution, I know that I am hurting people that have asthma and other breathing problems. And I don't want to contribute to that. And then, of course, there's also climate change that I don't want to contribute to. The other thing that motivates me is I have always been a tightwad. If there's something free, I want to take advantage of it. And we have free energy all over coming down on us every day. So I don't want to have to pay for electricity if I don't have to. And like I said in the presentation, this solar electricity is a lot cheaper than what I'm getting from the utility.
Do you have a technical background?
I'm a computer programmer. So I don't know. So that's like not
Halfway
like
there.
engineering, but I guess it's something.
You know how to deal with data and numbers, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, I do have to deal with numbers quite a bit.
Hey, Bob, too, you mentioned about being on the Solar Home Tour and talking to about 12 people or a dozen people last year. And that, did any of those people go ahead and buy solar systems? Do you have any idea?
There were a couple that were pretty serious about it, but I have not kept track of them, so I don't know.
Yeah. Where I live in, I live in the East Lansing area, more and more people are installing solar. So it's becoming more common, and there's, I think, more solar installers around now. And, you know, the solar, even if you don't have a local solar installer, a lot of the solar companies work statewide, so they're available to install systems anywhere in the state of Michigan. There's quite a few people now that have been doing this for a long time, so it's there's a lot of experienced solar installers out there that know how to do this work. Other questions for Bob? Barb? Or?
I have sort of a generic question, and I open up to anybody that may have done research along these lines. But you know, there's been a lot of demagoguery about various forms of renewable energy. I think when we talk about hydro, obviously there's concerns about disrupting the stream ecosystem for the dams and the ponds. But I just heard so many fantastic tales about the impacts of wind turbines, and even large solar arrays, that they're affecting how it's, you know, impacting the ecosystem. But that just doesn't seem to ring true for me. Does anybody know of any serious research that's been done to see if these other forms of like large solar arrays or wind turbine fields have had some sort of negative impact on the environment?
Well,
I'd suggest going to Rocky Mountain Institute, check out their website, research it there. If anybody knows, they do, or they'll find out for you.
Yeah, my experience when I worked at the State Energy Office was that, you know, for any technology, there's always implications, effects. You can't have a major development like a big wind farm or a big solar array without it having an impact. From what I learned, and I'm not an engineer or technical person though, you know, a lot of what people were upset about was the visual impact, especially of large wind farms, because, you know, you go out to the Thumb or up now to Gratiot County, or, you know, there's a lot of wind turbines. They're very tall, and, you know, some people think they're beautiful, those all white blades kind of spinning. Other people think they're as ugly, and they're industrial. So I know that's a reality, which is that you know, people sometimes move to the country because they want to basically live in the country with trees and birds, and they don't like looking at huge solar arrays, or they don't like looking at big wind farms with you know, wind turbines that are 400 or 500 feet tall, sort of thing, with the blades. But if you think in terms of impact on like wildlife, and there's a lot of complaints about health impacts, those really, research doesn't show that those are true, basically. There's a lot of misinformation on the internet. Now, having said that, communities need to do a good job of zoning and siting as any big development, regardless of what it is. And certainly that's true, especially for large wind farms, that you have to be sensitive about the fact there is sound, and it's sound that could be coming out 24 hours a day. And so you want standards so that they're not too noisy, and you want to be careful about impacts on birds. And, you know, there's a whole bunch of issues that any local community will want to put in place for siting and zoning to be properly done. And so, you know, there's you can find examples of solar arrays and wind farms that really are not ideal by a stretch, and that's because they weren't basically properly sited. There's a wrong way and a right way to do almost everything. One thing that's becoming an interesting issue now that I've just started reading about is recycling of solar panels. And the industry is finally getting where there's enough panels, especially over in Europe, that are coming out of production, that they have to deal with, you know, how they're going to, in an environmentally sustainable way, recycle the materials. And they're also talking a lot about that in the United States. And, you know, it can be done and is being done. And the industry needs to do more to make it easy for their panels to be recycled at the end of their life. So there are certainly issues. There are toxic materials that are used in solar panels, but in the production, there's no energy technology or any development that doesn't have some sort of impact. You have to put it in perspective, right? You have to compare what kind of impacts exist with manufacturing solar panels or building wind farms and the impacts that come from a big coal power plant. And you look at the impacts, there's no contest. It's obvious which approach is better for the environment. So it's, yeah, but I think we all that are kind of interested in solar energy and wind energy need to admit that while those things are very beneficial, they're not without issues that need to be addressed.
I had heard somewhere that one of the problems they're finding with large wind farms is that the vibrations from the towers tend to destroy the water table, messing up the water under the ground.
Oh.
I don't know if it's true or not, but this is something I've just recently been hearing about.
That's a new one. That's a new one. I've never heard of that. That's having been close to a lot of large wind turbines and listened to them. I just can't believe that the vibrations are that much that it would affect the water table. But I'm no scientist, but I'm very skeptical that that's a real issue. People seem to kind of come up with these ideas and throw them out on the internet. And like anything on the internet, right, you have to look at what the source is and kind of see if it's a credible source.
It would probably depend on what kind of soil was under the wind turbine too.
That's true.
And what kind of foundation. And you could always generate a physical barrier between the stand and the tower to mitigate that problem.
That's an excellent point, because sometimes I know that there's been bat fatalities, especially in Pennsylvania, and the industry is and the bat conservation folks have been working on measures to mitigate bat fatalities, because early wind turbines and ridges in Pennsylvania were just killing lots of bats, and that was just kind of a tragedy. And there are things that can be done to prevent that. So,
are you on a webinar?
Other questions for Bob before we kind of adjourn for the night, or any other questions or comments?
Oh, I was just going to add a further comment. I know that there's been a lot of concern about bird strike as well with wind turbines. And I apologize, I can't cite the source, but I saw something rather credible. It's one of the science journals that a lot more birds are killed by impact with windows in high-rise buildings than by wind turbines. So if people are really, really concerned about that, we have to get rid of all the skyscrapers. Or yeah, and house cats, of course. So I don't think there's a huge impact on the bird population from wind turbines, although they obviously do pose a problem.
Well, if it was in a migratory path, they seem to have that kind of problem in California.
Yeah.
That's a valid point.
Yeah, the typical, if you think in terms of a typical wind farm in the Midwest, not in a migratory path, but just out in some field, a wind turbine will probably be killing 2 or 3 birds a year. So, I mean, they're killing birds, but you're right about buildings. And, you know, the odd thing about buildings is you could cut the deaths down tremendously just by turning the lights off. You know, the reason birds are hitting these skyscrapers is they have the damn lights on all night. And the other thing that was kind of surprising, but not too surprising, is you know, actually cats kill more birds than wind turbines, at least at this point in time. You know, people who let their cats out at night, cats are you know, they go hunting. But having said that, and Karen, you got a good point about migratory pathways. There's no reason why we can't minimize both bird and bat fatalities by doing things the right way. Then there's no reason why we can't. Other comments or questions before we break for tonight? Well, thank you very much, Bob, and I really appreciate it. And boy, I think you covered a lot of good ground and a lot of major points that need to be made. And actually, next Thursday, we're changing a little in that we're going to have a MI geothermal story. We're going to have the session about a geothermal system. And Alan Waller, who's on the GLREA board, has a system at his house and also is in the industry. He works for Water Furnace. So he'll be doing a my geothermal story next Thursday. So I hope you can join us. And again, thanks, Bob, for making the presentation. This has been very helpful.
You're
I
very
want to
welcome.
say,
It was
I
a
want to say
lot of fun for me.
this has
Okay.
been a really great program. This is my third one, and I'm so impressed by the quality of the information and the presentations. It's really a good program.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Good job, Bob.